in and out, and if you plan on grabbing somebody's neck, plan on taking a couple of shots to the dome. That's what a hamburger's all about.
Oh, Internet, what are you really with those funny little videos? Hello, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is July 23rd, 2025. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. And today I will not tell you to subscribe. Do it. We've got a big show for you today. A lot of stuff we're catching up on. And actually, as you may note, you are not watching a live stream this very moment. We had to pre-record this because I'm in Washington, D.C. right now. That's right. I'm in the belly of the beast. I'm in the swamp. There is an all-in podcast AI conference that President Trump is at. I was asked to attend. What I'm doing right now, God only knows, but I will report back to you live. I'll be back live tomorrow, and I will let you know. Let's just dive into the stuff. We got a lot of Kevin O'Leary clips today. We got a lot of good stuff happening in America today, and a little bit of the other stuff. That's how we're doing it today. Little bit of this, little bit of that. A lot of hand motions. No crack on the program today. Let's start with Kevin O'Leary, you know, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, who he bounces around the network to network. He's on ABC with Shark Tank. Then he goes on CNN and he sits with those wackadoodles over there with Scott Jennings and the rest of the nutbags over there. And then he's often on Fox. He's probably on a couple other networks. I keep telling you guys, we got to get him on the show. I don't know why we haven't had him on. But here he is getting into it with a guy named Ahmed, who is arguing that Trump has caused the world not to believe in America. Kevin takes the counterpoint, which is that there's some good stuff going on here. Trust is back. America's back, baby. Play the clip.
3 years from now, I think Trump has eroded global trust in the American economy and American deal making.
You mean the all-time high market ever in history?
It's high because they don't believe.
The all-time high?
They think Trump is going to chicken out.
Never been higher. Never been worth more. Never been more successful. Never.
When the
it's eroded that trust. All-time high today at 4:30 in history. Never worth more. What are you talking about?
Well, look.
Let's see what happens on August 1st when he announces potentially up to 50%.
There's that chick. I just love her. There's just, she's always looking down. There's just nothing going on in her brain, Abby Phillips. Anyway, as for this guy, it doesn't matter. Okay, yes, things are going well in America because people don't believe in Trump. Like, okay, whatever. I don't even know what that means. How about we start trusting people that are successful? We have a pensiency. Is that a word? I think it's a word. It sounds like a word. We have a habit in this country of trusting people who have never accomplished anything. If you were to look at all of the Democrats, whether it's AOC or Bernie or Mamdani, all of these people that actually have never run businesses, many of whom don't have families, don't have children, they've never run an operation, they don't know how to build anything. We somehow have this need to put these people in charge. Well, now we've got the adults in charge, and Donald Trump has built an awful lot of things. Some super successful, some less successful, some failures, but that's what a businessman and a builder does. You're not going to bat 1,000. And right now, as the trade deals are out and they're coming back in, the markets are high. I would venture any of you right now, look at your statements, your bank statements, and they're doing pretty well. There's a general feeling. I mean, I know facts don't care about your feelings. There's some small person who says that every now and again. But just how do you feel? Let's put aside the numbers for a second because I'm going to show you numbers in a moment. But how do you generally feel about your dollars right now? I feel way more confident in my dollars right now when I go to the store than I felt under Joe Biden and the Inflation Reduction Act and the fact that we had these ridiculous trade deals and we were footing the bill on NATO and all of these things. So there's the feeling portion of it, but how about the fact portion of it? This from CNBC.
Here's a recap of today's market action. The S&P and the Nasdaq both hitting record highs once again as communication services and discretionary stocks led the gains.
To recap, as Mr. Wonderful said, things are looking good. The market is way up. People do have a little bit more money in their bank account. And I think, although pensiency is a word, they have a penchant for that, not a pensiency for it. I'm not above correcting myself when it comes to grammar on this program. But let's get this to where there's a little bit of a hiccup as it pertains to the economy at the moment, because Trump has been fighting with Jerome Powell, who's in charge of the Fed, because Trump really wants interest rates turned down, and it's up to Powell, and we'll explain that a bit more. Here's what Trump said on Truth Social. Too late, and the Fed are choking out their housing market with their high rate, making it difficult for people, especially the young, to buy a house. He is truly one of my worst appointments. Sleepy Joe saw how bad he was and reappointed him anyway, and the Fed board has done nothing to stop this numbskull from hurting so many people. In many ways, the board is equally to blame. The USA is rocking, there is very low inflation, and we deserve to be at 1%, saving $1 trillion a year on interest costs. I can't tell you how dumb too late is, so bad for our country. So too late obviously is his pet name for Jerome Powell. And you know, one of the things I always tell you guys, like I try not to get ahead of my skis on this show. I am not an economic expert, but I like talking to economic experts and I like learning and things like that. But one of the things that I just judge the economy on, generally speaking, are interest rates, because when you can borrow, when interest rates are low and you can borrow, you can get into the game more, which is why I always say I like when I pay my mortgage, because I got a low interest rate before it exploded a couple of years ago, where now it's 6, 7, sometimes 8%. If you got in at 2 to even 3.5%, then yeah, you're paying a little something extra every month to the bank for the privilege of lending you money so that you could buy your house. And then the hope is that over time, as you pay it back, the bank gets all their money back. So then they made a profit from you over the course of however many years your loan was, 10, 15, 30 years. You got your house. And then at the end of that, your house is now worth more, and then you sell it, and that's how you do win-win-win. That's the beauty of capitalism. When the rates are high, though, it's a barrier to entry that now many young people for sure are feeling. So we did a little fact checking before, or a little background check. So why is it, I wanted to do, you know, my thing lately has been, let's give the devil his due. So why is it that the Fed does not want to lower interest rates? This is according to Grok. Jerome Powell would lower interest rates if inflation drops sustainably to the Fed's 2% target, the job market weakens, or the economy shows signs of a serious slowdown or financial stress. Right now, rates aren't being cut because inflation is still a bit too high, the labor market remains strong, and the Fed doesn't want to risk cutting it too soon and letting inflation come back. They're waiting for a clearer sign that inflation is truly under control before easing policy. So according to Grok, there's basically an acknowledgement that inflation is pretty good, but Powell's argument is I want to wait a little bit longer because if we go in too early, it could blow the whole thing up. That's his position. Obviously, Trump takes another position. I just laid out my general position, which is lower it as much as possible so more people can get in. You know, you also want, we've been talking a lot, and we'll do more on the second half of the show, of how young people are sort of feeling like they're being left out of the economy. Well, the best way to get them in is be able to lend them some money so that they could maybe build a business or do a startup or get involved in AI or tech or build a home and not have to be paying rent and all of that. So you want things to be as open as possible, but there does seem to be this loggerhead, let's say, between Powell and Trump. Now I want to show you this video of CEO of Azoria investment firm. His name's James Fishbeck, talking about how actually there's a political agenda here, and Jerome Powell is basically sabotaging Trump.
Americans deserve a little bit of relief when it comes to their credit card bills and their mortgages, and Jerome Powell can do that if he would stop trying to sabotage the president and his agenda.
Well, of course, President Trump has been pushing back. He had comments again today saying the Fed has to cut a full percentage point. But, you know, what do you make of the pressure campaign? Some people say it works against the president because now Powell, if he would look like he's bending to the will of the White House.
Well, it's not bending the will to the White House. It's bending the will to the economic facts and realities of the ground. Here's the truth, Charles. The New York Federal Reserve has its own estimate of what they call the natural rate of interest. That's the interest rate you know from the Fed that neither slows down nor speeds up the economy. Their model says that the Fed's rate right now should be 3.3%. Where is Jerome Powell keeping it? 4.3%, a full percentage point above where rates actually should be. So President Trump, once again, is absolutely right. They need to cut by a full point. That should likely take place over the course of a couple meetings later this year. But that's what needs to happen. And so President Trump has the right instincts here in calling for the Fed to loosen policy, to recalibrate it, and to align it with the actual facts on the ground.
Okay, so like a kind of simple version of this, if you don't want to get too inside all of the math on this. If the rates right now are at about 4.3%, and what he's arguing there is it should be closer to 3.3, that's pretty significant. And, you know, even in a place like Florida, our housing market has slowed down. Even though all these people want to come to Florida right now, if you need to get a mortgage to buy your home and you're like, the rate's high, maybe you're not going to move right now. So think about it. All of the people that are thinking about leaving New York right now, they have to get new mortgages in Florida and they really want to get out, but they're looking at those high interest rates. You lower those interest rates, those people start moving. You actually just start adding energy to the economy. People start moving around again. They start buying houses. And then, by the way, those people who bought the houses here in Florida, they're going to have to sell their house back in New York. And then maybe somebody who's a renter in New York finally gets to buy their first house. So again, just lowering the rates, getting the government a little bit out of the way so people can borrow more and partake in the economy more is generally good. Here's Scott Bessent calling for an internal review of the Federal Reserve because this is starting to feel more like a political fight than purely a math fight.
To be clear, I am calling for an internal review, and I think that this could be Jay Powell's legacy, that the Fed, since the great financial crisis, has had what I call gain-of-function monetary policy, and the expenses have gone up a lot. The Federal Reserve Board expenses since 2004 are up 4x. You know, I can tell you, at Treasury, we've cut our expenses about 17% last year. Everything else that the Fed has done over the years has just grown and grown and grown. And this is what happens when you don't have oversight. You know, they aren't subject to appropriations. They either use the money they make. Right now, they're losing about $100 billion a year, so they just print money to spend it.
All right, so there's the Treasury Secretary saying we should have an internal review of the Fed, which seems to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And also, why do they seem to be at odds with the president? Well, Kevin O'Leary, now on another network, explains perhaps why Trump is just bashing the Fed, even if he's not happy with the numbers, that when you bash the Fed, you're kind of always on the winning side.
It's always fun to bash the Fed. I mean, if I were the president, I'd bash the Fed too. Why not? But there are some good questions about policy. Why are we paying interest, for example, on bank reserves when half the banks, or many of them, are foreign? I mean, there's a lot of issues here, and I think there's a chance to narrate those.
Okay, so he expanded on that, but the point being that sometimes it's worth picking a fight. So for Trump, even if the math does work out, even if Trump feels like inflation is lowered, the economy is chugging along, you should lower the rates, you're not going to lose by bashing the Fed. There aren't going to be a lot of people out there like, leave the Fed alone. We love the Fed. It's like if you go after please leave the IRS alone. They're just such great people. Like even the dingbat Democrats don't do that. Anyway, all of that aside, the political fight aside, and even some of the math aside, I think generally speaking, if we can get those rates down to that 3.3%, something like that again, and people can start borrowing more and then building more, like that really is the engine of the economy. Give the American people a chance to build some things. We will have more on a place that is not building things, but is actually destroying things. Yes, I'm talking about California in just a second. But first, Prolon. Want to look and feel your best this summer? Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet is your go-to result. I use it when I need results fast. It's convenient, backed by noble winning science, and it works. In just 5 days, Prolon targets fat loss, supports lean muscle, and resets your metabolism, all while nourishing your body with plant-based soups, snacks, and teas that keep you in a fasting state. No injections, no guesswork. And now with Prolon Next Gen, you get 100% organic meals, better taste, and everything pre-packed and ready to go. Get 15% off site-wide and a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to the 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com. That's PROLONLIFE.com/Dave. All right, so I really love this story because, you know, every now and again we get one that just perfectly encapsulates almost everything that I talk about on this show all the time. This from Fortune magazine. In-N-Out's billionaire heiress is quitting California because it's too difficult to raise kids and do business. So for those of you that have never been to an In-N-Out, because it's only in certain parts of the country, to me, it is the best burger joint, franchised burger joint, chain burger joint, period. It's the only thing I miss from California, and it is better than Shake Shack. It's better than Five Guys. It's better than BurgerFi. It's better than Burger King or Burger Buddy. It's better than all of them, okay? But In-N-Out, which for the first time about a year ago we covered it, had to close a store. They closed their Oakland operation because of crime, actually, and general mayhem in Oakland. Now they are basically going to leave California. They're going to have the franchises there, but the company is going to leave. This is an unbelievably, if you've never been there and you drive past one, you got to stop. In every single one that I've ever been to, they are clean. The employees are happy. The burgers are fresh. The fries are good. It's just a well-run family business that they've done something amazing with. But here's In-N-Out President Lynsi Snyder with Allie Beth Stuckey talking about why her family is leaving Cali for, I'm shocked, a red state, in this case, Tennessee.
Happen. We're building an office in Franklin, so I'm actually moving out there. And
wow, how do you feel about that? You're like a California girl through and through, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really loved living in Northern California, and I'm so thankful that I grew up there because I think it changed a lot of who I am today. You know, I think I would be different if I was raised in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
There, like you said, there's a lot of great things about California, but raising a family is not easy here. Doing business is not easy here. Now, the bulk of our stores are still going to be here in California, but it will be wonderful having an office out there, growing out there.
Totally.
And being able to have the family and other people's families out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that, it's two-part. We'll have everybody under one roof here in Baldwin Park, and we'll close our fine.
Isn't that interesting? A billionaire being like, you know, it's tough financially to do business in this place because of the high taxes and the high regulation, on top of the family stuff. Most of us get the family stuff and the woke schools and what they're doing to the kids and all that stuff. But a billionaire being like, you know what? Most of our restaurants will stay here, but our corporate operation and my ability to raise my family and everything else, I'm going to move to Tennessee to do it, despite the fact that, as she pointed out, most of their restaurants are actually in California, but also to the backdrop of them having to close their first restaurant ever. I mean, think of can we find out how many In-N-Out franchises there are? It's not even franchises. I think they own all of them, if I'm not mistaken. So they're not actually franchised out to other people. But the point is, they have a tremendous amount of highly successful restaurants. And now they're taking their corporate headquarters and a billionaire family out. And by the way, this is exactly what a guy, you may have heard of him, Elon Musk did, and Gavin Newsom applauded when he left. There are 281 In-N-Outs in Cali right now. Watch this. So my friend Jillian Michaels, who was on the show last week, who I just adore, she is another LA person who has now moved out of the state. And here she is. She returned to LA a couple days ago and she took this video.
All right, back in LA, picking up my kids from a family. California, everybody.
So congratulations, Karen Bass. Congratulations, Gavin Newsom. This is what you guys have done. And by the way, it's not cherry picking just to show that. Can I find something in Florida like that? Probably. Actually, I don't know that you could find something that bad. But could you find some homeless something somewhere? Of course you could. Can you find some homeless people? Sure. But decline is a choice. And what you see right there in that little moment, I couldn't even figure out what part of LA she was in. I'll ask her later. But like, that's everywhere under the bridges. It's all over the place. It's completely taken over downtown. Don't tell me about Skid Row. And by the way, it's not just LA. This from San Francisco last weekend. Where is the social distancing when you need it? So again, it's a choice, guys, and there's a reason that Democrat-run cities then come in where the communists say, we'll house everybody, because people look around and they're like, well, these crackheads need houses. And then the communists come in and we'll give them the houses. We're just gonna have to take them from the rich people. Don't worry about that. And by the way, we're gonna need a lot of their money. And then the rich people leave, and then they need a lot of more other people's money, and there's less money to go around, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing, of course, that happens in these places, like Los Angeles, is that crime runs rampant. It's not just that you have transients and you have illegals and you have drug addicts and general zombies who want to eat your face and all of those things out on the street. It's that criminals are emboldened because they know they're not going to be arrested, and they usually are not going to be shot, although in this case, a bunch of looters tried to rob an LA jewelry store, and the owner was wise enough to have a gun.
Just before 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, when a group of well over a dozen would-be robbers pulled up to the Amira Jewelry store in Anaheim on Brookhurst and started trying to smash their way in. At the time, the owner and some of his employees were inside. The owner, who didn't want his name used, then pulled out a gun and fired toward the bulletproof window. The shot had the desired effect.
After I do the first shot to scare him first, thanks God, I see that happen, the people, he's left.
So look, I know we can show you these kind of criminal things all the time, but there's a reason that that one matters. There's a guy who lives in Anaheim, California, not too far from Los Angeles, and a huge group of whoever the F these kids are go in, and they just think they're gonna have an easy time because it's Cali and the police won't show up and people will be unarmed and you can do whatever you want. You can steal the jewelry and you can sell it on the black market and you get away with all of it because that's what happens consistently. And then what happens when you're a business person who's armed? One shot into the, does it bounce off the bulletproof glass? Could he have hurt himself while shooting indoors, the bulletproof? I'd like to know about that. But the point is, one shot and he got them to scurry away like rats. So if you live in a place that will not defend you, and you shouldn't trust that it's going to defend you, even if you live in a good place, you should always be willing to defend yourself and your property and your family and everything else. Here's Kevin O'Leary again, bouncing around networks, talking about California, and maybe, you know, if it keeps crumbling and the shooting and the zombies and everything, that they're gonna hold somebody accountable for some of this stuff.
It's bad policy. It's bad management at both the state level and municipal. I don't wear my watches in any California cities anymore. Yeah. Some of them are lawless wastelands downtown. The defund the police thing was a bad idea. It's not just in and out. Chevron, one of the world's most iconic energy companies, was started in California. They actually left their home state. If that doesn't tell you it's broken, I don't know what does. Energy independence is crucial for America. They basically said, can't stay here anymore, even though this is our legacy. We have to leave under these punitive policies. I'm so happy there is competition of states. Tennessee is a go-to state. Florida, Texas, there are many others, North Dakota, South Dakota. I think it's important that we understand that now we have social media that sees these stories and it spreads it out everywhere, that if you are a policy maker, and you're held accountable now. I mean, this is right on Gavin Newsom's lap.
All right, so first off, while the video was playing there, Connor did a little research, and as far as shooting at bulletproof glass, it depends on the angle and the type of bullet as to whether it might bounce back in your face. That's important to know. Everybody take note of that. And of course, everything. I mean, O'Leary, once again, just making basic sense. So congratulations, you guys kicked out In-N-Out, you kicked out Chevron, you kicked out Tesla, you kicked out the Rubin Report, you kicked out a whole bunch of businesses over years. And I don't know, there's got to be someone somewhere, someone send me the name of a business that was like, you know what, I can't do this in Tennessee or Texas or Florida anymore. I'm moving to Los Angeles. That just sounds profoundly ridiculous. I think I mentioned this once before, but I have a very good friend who is a brilliant home builder in Los Angeles. He makes absolutely gorgeous homes. He has 3 homes for sale right now that are like a decent amount of money, between $4 and $7 million. But that for LA, that's like kind of average actually. And he cannot sell them. It's not because the homes aren't great. It's because nobody is moving there anymore. So good luck with all of that. We'll have more on the Democrats who are just confused. They're just confused about, they're either downright evil or they're confused about everything. I leave that for you to decide, but first, 1775 coffee. Guys, let's be honest. Most coffee gives you that quick little jolt, and then what? A crash, jitters, that mid-morning brain fog, and before you know it, you're already pouring a second or third cup just to make it to lunchtime. But what if your coffee did more than just wake you up? What if it actually did something good for your body, something real, something lasting? Meet Rejuvenate Coffee. This isn't your average cup of joe. It starts with premium real Arabica beans, so yes, it tastes incredible. But what makes it special is what's inside, a powerful compound called CAAKG. Now, I know that sounds technical, but stick with me. CAAKG is backed by real science. It's been shown to support cellular energy, a healthy metabolism, and even healthy aging. Yeah, you heard that right. Your coffee could actually help you feel better, not just today, but 10 years from now. This isn't a gimmick. It's not a trend. It's a smart decision for people who take their health seriously and who want to feel focused, strong, and dialed in every single day. So if you care about how you feel, not just this morning, but long term, Rejuvenate Coffee is for you. Head on over to 1775coffee.com/Rubin and order a bag of Rejuvenate Coffee today. Fuel your body, protect your future. Rejuvenate. So what is going on with the Democrats? Is it that they are just so good and so right and we're so mean and we've tricked everyone into thinking that our ideas are good? Or is it that they are just pandering morons who never take a look in the mirror and see that they are the problem? Here's video of a man who had sex with a Chinese spy. He's a congressman from California. Eric Swalwell also farted live on MSNBC with Chris Matthews. And he says that the problem in 2024 was that Americans just didn't get enough Kamala Harris. I always kept saying to you guys, can we get more Kamala Harris? Because maybe she is saying something sensible. Maybe.
Congressman, I mean, if you could give us just one line, I mean, what did you learn from the 2024 election? What should Democrats not do next time?
Well, we have to always be on. And let me just give you an example. Most people say that the biggest mistake that Kamala Harris made was saying that she wouldn't do anything different than Joe Biden when she went on The View. I don't think that was the biggest mistake. And candidates, trip up all the time. I think the mistake was that there were many days that would pass before she did another major interview. And Donald Trump makes 3 mistakes an hour, but he's always on. And so when you're always communicating, not just to cable news, but to local news, to podcasters, to influencers, always on means you're always honest. And we have the values on our side, and now we just have to be in more places, more spaces, and that's why we're going to win the midterms in just under 18 months.
God, this guy is such a schmuck. He says Donald Trump is always on, and Donald Trump lies 3 times an hour. And then a minute later, he says always on means always honest. Like, just absolutely awful. But yes, we did need more Kamala Harris. We needed more of this.
Everything is in context. My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
If America becomes a socialist, communist crap hole, we're going to look back and go, man, those were the good old days, the coconut tree and the context we live in, and Russia big, Ukraine small. Listen to this from Eric Daughtry, breaking. Democrat leaders plot to redraw congressional lines before 2026 in favor of blue seats in New York, New Jersey, Minnesota, Washington, and California if Republicans do the same in Texas. That's according to CNN. And we've talked about redistricting before. Both sides do it. It's often very confusing and done for political purposes. And you very rarely see districts that make sense, that like geographically look like they're a Tetris thing that should fit together. They end up looking like these very bizarro shapes that you're like, something feels shady. And absolutely, this is done by both sides for sure, because they're trying to game the system. But here is Timu Obama talking about why the Democrats might do it, because they're just great people.
And these Republicans are trying to disenfranchise millions of voters in Texas as part of a scheme to rig the midterm election. What we're committed to doing as Democrats in New York, in California, in New Jersey, across the country, is make sure that the congressional maps are as fair as possible. The people of Texas are at risk of not having fair maps. We have a responsibility of making sure that we look at every single state of the union and do what we can to ensure that we maximize fairness in those jurisdictions.
I cannot believe anyone falls for this stuff anymore. Did you catch it? Like, guys, again, both sides do it. Both sides do it. I'll be completely ambivalent on who's worse at it or who's more nefarious or whatever else. Let's just put that aside. But his argument is that they do it. Those Republicans do it because they want power. We do it because we want to be fair. Like, if you are buying that bunk at this point, then I got a bridge to sell you, which you can get pretty cheap in New York because nobody's driving anymore thanks to their congestion pricing. Here is a congresswoman from Brooklyn. Her name is Yvette Clarke. And here's another one of those moments where they tell you the quiet part out loud. She wants migrants in her district ASAP because of redistricting so that she will have more power.
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. We have a diaspora that can absorb a significant number of these migrants. And when I hear colleagues talk about, the doors of the inn being closed, no room in the inn, I'm saying, I need more people in my district, but just for redistricting purposes. And those members could clearly fit here.
Might I say that if you live in Brooklyn and you're under that woman's thumb, you gotta go. Like, not only do you probably have a communist mayor coming in for New York City as a whole, but your local congressperson is basically saying, hey, illegals, come here, we need you. And why does she want them for redistricting? Because that will give the Democrats more power. So if you live in Crown Heights, if you live in Brownsville, get going. Don't come to Florida. Can't come here. Interest rates very high, hard to buy a house, insurance rates, alligators, people being shot, mayhem, but go somewhere else. Do you remember Beto O'Rourke? He ran for president once. He's a furry, which is a type of person that puts on a giant like mouse costume, or what other animals they like, raccoons or fox. They're big on foxes and wolves. And I guess they dance and party and sometimes have sex with other furry people. He's apparently one of them. And here he is. And again, it's just that when the Democrats do things, it's because they're good people. We, the rest of us, just want power.
Match fire with fire. I think Democrats in the past too often have been more concerned with being right than being in power. And we've seen Republicans only care about being in power regardless of what is right.
So you support the Newsom effort because California right now has an independent commission that does districts in as fair a way as possible, in nonpartisan way as possible. And you're saying Democrats should, even though you don't approve of it, Democrats should do it too.
We have to get serious. We have to be absolutely ruthless about getting back in power. So yes, in California, in Illinois, in New York, wherever we have the trifecta of power, we have to use that to its absolute extent.
Power schmower, we'll get to that in a second. I believe we have a picture of Beto, which is, what's his real name? Is it his real name, Francis or something? But anyway, I think we have a picture of Beto in his band there, and I guess is that a pig mask? At the sheep mask. So it became like an internet meme that he likes to put on animal masks and I suppose have sex with strange furry creatures. As for what he said there, call me old school. I like having principles, and you have principles and you should try to hold on to your principles, not just attain power. And everything with them is a projection, right? It's all a confession through their projection of what they say about us. And I'm giving the devil his due. That really has been the theme all week. I am not saying Republicans are right about this, or I'm not saying Republicans do it for the right reasons. Everyone in politics wants to get power. That's what politics is. It's a nasty game of power. It's like Game of Thrones, just with less White Walkers. You get it? Like, it's a powerful game where you're gonna have to do a lot of bad shit. But this thing where they have to pretend they're the good guys all the time, it really could just make you barf. And speaking about barfing, we're gonna talk about Harvard in a second, but first, V-Shred. While most collagen brands want you to choose between better skin or stronger joints, there's finally one that does both. Here's the problem. Most collagens only give you one type from one source, but your body needs 3 different types for complete support. Type 1 for skin and bones, type 2 for joints and cartilage, type 3 for muscles and blood vessels. Sculpt Nation Multi-Collagen is the only formula that delivers all 3 types from premium sources: grass-fed cows, chickens, and wild-caught fish. While the other brands cut corners with cheap single-source collagen, Sculpt Nation invested in the full spectrum your body
actually needs. The difference? Users see results everywhere. Firmer, more elastic skin, joints that move without grinding, hair that grows thicker and stronger, nails that stop breaking, even better digestion. Plus, it actually dissolves completely. No clumps, no grit, no nasty taste like those bargain brands. For our listeners, Sculpt Nation is offering up to 57% off their multi-collagen. That's better than any deal you'll find on inferior single-type collagens. Visit sculptnation.com/Rubin. With the 365-day guarantee, you can try it free for an entire year, absolutely risk-free. Stop settling for incomplete collagen. Get the full spectrum at sculptnation.com/Rubin.
This from Donald Trump on Truth Social. The Harvard case was just tried in Massachusetts before an Obama-appointed judge. She is a total disaster, which I say even before hearing her ruling. She has systematically taken over various Harvard cases and is an automatic loss for the people of our country. Harvard has $52 billion sitting in the bank, and yet they are anti-Semitic, anti-Christian, and anti-America. Much of this money comes from the USA, all to the detriment of other schools, colleges, and institutions, and we are not going to allow this unfair situation to happen any longer. How did Trump-hating judge get these cases? When she rules against us, we will immediately appeal and win. Also, the government will stop the practice of giving many billions of dollars to Harvard, much of which has been given without explanation. It is a long-time commitment to fairness in funding and education, and the Trump administration will not stop until there is victory. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So interesting that Trump is preemptively going after the judge before they rule on the Harvard situation, but it is true that Harvard has a $52 billion endowment. It should not get a dime from the government or from any other outside source. It's basically running a giant hedge fund and slush fund, and God knows what it's doing with that money to fund all sorts of nefarious things. And really, it's a little hard to tell if Harvard is ground zero for all of the radical lunacy in the country or if it's Columbia. It's probably Harvard because Harvard places more high-level people out in politics and corporate world and everything else than Columbia, but Columbia is trying their hardest too. So what does this all lead us to? As these institutions fail, as we realize the corruption, as you end up paying an awful lot to make your kid turn into a gender-furry, queer, communist, jihadist lunatic, perhaps you might want to not send your kid to a place like that, not get into debt to do it, and actually support them learning a skill that they could become quite successful with. And if the shit ever hit the fan, they'd know how to actually do a little something. Here's Charlie Kirk talking to a guy who knows a bit about doing something, Mike Rowe, who does all sorts of dirty jobs, and talking about blue-collar trades and that there is value in actual work.
I want to dive into this for a second. And Mike, you deserve such credit, and I cite you all the time. As you know, I am a outspoken critic of the current college model. I didn't go to college. I represent a lot of blue-collar workers who are fans of our show because I try to give a voice to that portion of the country. But part of the problem, and we call them the muscular class on the show, as you know, Mike, part of the problem are parents around the country would rather have their kid go into debt to study sociology at, Wellesley than to go work construction. Can you speak to that? Part of that needs to be a cultural change for specifically suburban America. If their son says, Mom, I want to be an electrician, they should applaud that. They should celebrate it. They should encourage it because they actually might have better character, a better financial balance sheet, less debt, and greater job opportunities than studying communications at University of Illinois.
Parents were left with this idea that there was really only one path for their kid. And if their kid couldn't take that path, everything else, including that guy welding two pipes together, was some sort of vocational consolation prize. Well, the chickens have come home to roost. AI, as I said in that clip, is coming for the coders. It's not coming for that guy. That guy's job is secure, and he's making mid-six figures, and that's the message.
Well, and this
Devil is due again. Theme of the week. AI may come for that guy's job eventually, but it's going to take a little bit longer. It's going to come for the coders first, and it's going to come for a lot of the amorphous jobs first. But eventually robots will be able to, weld pipes together and do plumbing and all, and do electric work and everything else. But that aside, the broader point is what they're both saying is right. Of course, that there was a generational thing where you had to, somehow to be a good parent, you had to send your kids into these schools. And then suddenly we sent our kids into these schools, and over decades we realized, boy, not only did they not learn much, they were brainwashed in a lot of ways. They didn't get real skills. Lesbian dance theory is not something that's very applicable in the business world, et cetera, et cetera. although it does have its merits, and I don't want to say anything bad about lesbian dance theory, but you get the point, that then we abandon these people, and then they're pissed, they're in debt, and they're like, why the hell did you put me into this system, right? And then that leads to all sorts of other things where they want to burn the system down and all that. You know, there is nothing, I talk about this a bunch, but like, I really love when someone loves their job and is good at it. Like, I don't have to love what you do or even care about what you do, but when I interview people that are in a completely different field or something, if they love what they do, then I'm interested in talking to them. And when I see a craftsman who is really great at what they do, so we mentioned a couple of days ago, I think it was on Tuesday's show, there was a massive power outage in the whole area here. And our house was running on the generator, the gas generator outside. And our electrician happened to be here working on another project that we're doing on the other side of the house right now. And we realized that we had a mix-up when we installed our Starlink, that everything in our house for the studio was connected to our generator except Starlink. So Starlink was down too. So we had access to the satellite, even though we didn't have internet because of the power outage, but Starlink was not connected to the generator. And he got here at about 10:15, and within 20 minutes, he was able to connect Starlink to our generator, to the gas, et cetera, and we had the show running. And it's like, that's a great person. That is a great human being who knows how to do his job, who's a great tradesman. And I give him a lot of credit for that, Ariel. You're great at what you do. But we have a whole generation that isn't particularly good about a lot of things, and they are now pissed that they're in debt heavily. Check out this. This is a Business Insider journalist talking about how student debt has now led Gen Z to actually pursuing some things that might make some sense, like those blue-collar jobs.
Well, a new article from Business Insider is shedding light on Gen Z's pivot from college to blue-collar jobs, from student debt to the rise in AI, how Americans are losing faith in the college degree. Amanda Hoover is here. She's the author of this article and is joining me now. Amanda, thank you so much for joining me to talk about this. This is so interesting. You mentioned in the article just 22% of U.S. adults say college was worth it if a student had to take out loans to attend. So how have those loans pushed Gen Z toward blue-collar jobs?
There's definitely a lot of young people that are looking at college and questioning, is this worth it? You know, the time, the effort, but also the debt.
So it's not that confusing, guys. College doesn't fully make sense the way that it was sold to an awful lot of people. I can also tell you that with our kids, like the family planning we're doing, we sat down with our business managers and our financial planners and everybody, and they were like, what do you guys want to do about college? And I was like, college, what are you talking about? I was like, I'd love to figure out the mechanisms so with every year I can put money into a fund for them, and hopefully we raise them right, and when they're out of high school, we can maybe help them start a business. Maybe they want to travel for a little bit or something. And if their heads are on right, we'll facilitate those things. But why would I be putting money that's going to be protected tax-wise just so I can send them to a school to learn everything counter to perhaps what we hopefully taught them the right way here? So people need to think about this, and it is good to know now that young people are starting to look at it. I think a lot of imagine if you're 15 growing up right now and you're watching the same stuff that we all watch, and you're watching these college kids with terrorist masks on screaming about how evil America is. And you might just be like, you know what? I don't want to get into debt to become some anti-America psychotic lunatic. How about that? Let's jump to these tweets and images right here from Ed Wokeness. I thought this was an interesting way to end the show because if you want to see the cultural change that we're talking about, whether it's related to jobs, whether it's related to the economy, or in this case, particular sort of self-image and perhaps family, what you're seeing there was Nike in 2021 own the floor with, I would say, a rather large, plump woman who I don't know if she's particularly good at anything athletically, but she's happy, she's large and in charge. Okay, that's what they were doing in 21. And how about this in 25? Do you think the culture has changed? You've already won. And what's going on there? Well, how about that? It's a father, and he's about to teach his young kid how to play golf. But the point is he has a young kid, and he's won already because he has a son, and he has a family. No offense to the larger women who are working the booty on the dance floor. I thank you for watching the show today. As I said, I'm in D.C. right now, so stay tuned. We'll get some updates on what I've been up to. Maybe I got to see Mr. Trump and the rest of the cast of characters we're always talking about. No post-game show today, obviously, but we will be back live tomorrow at 11 a.m. Adios.
I feel like every time I look at my phone nowadays, it's just filled with racism and misogyny and anti-Semitism. And then I'll close my notes app